Hello world, and welcome back to, or welcome to, the Pop Culture Patter podcast. As always, I'm your host, Callum Brown, and by the sound of my voice you can probably tell I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I'll try and get through this as quickly as I can. Today's guest is the lovely Christian from Unmuzzled at 67, a brand new weekly episodic podcast sharing the confessions of a pensioner, to which you can check out episode 1 now on Spotify and episode 2 from tomorrow. Christian and I have only known each other for a short period of time, but I've built a fantastic bond. We talk about her new podcast, as well as explore her experiences with mental health. As always, this podcast is recorded with our good friends at the Podcast Studio Glasgow, only podcast studio in Scotland to offer 18 years of experience in the medium and run by a pioneer in British podcasting. To find out more info or to book a session, please visit www.podcaststudioglasgow.com. Before we get into this episode, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Brown & Co Properties, an award-winning family-run estate agency based in Whitburn, West Lothian. With a Property Mark protected service for a fixed fee, we are your go-to agent for expert property sales advice in the area. Get on the go with Brown & Co. Christine, welcome to the podcast and thank you for coming on at such short notice.
Oh, you're very welcome.
How are you?
I'm great. Excited to be here. First podcast.
Yep. And
being interviewed.
As a guest,
as
yeah.
A guest. Great.
And you and I have only known each other a short time, but I feel like we've made a friend for life.
Oh, definitely.
And we've met for coffee and we've met in the room next door 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
So
we're very comfortable.
Yeah.
Very comfortable with each other, which is nice. So quickly.
Aye, which is fantastic at this stage as well, because I'm a nervous wreck. My heart's beating.
I know that feeling really well.
And both of us are trying our hands as podcasters.
Yes.
And is there any podcast that you listen to?
I am a huge Joe Rogan fan, I have to say. I have been for a while. My friend's son, who's 21, said to me, "You should be listening to Joe Rogan." And I was like, "Who is that?" And so I watch him regularly, and I did decide, rightly or wrongly, that I wouldn't really look at other podcasts before I started to do my own, because I really listened to Joe Rogan and that's it. And I thought, I wonder if that would put me more under pressure to watch other people and their ways of doing things, and it might make me more nervous. So I guess I purposefully kind of stepped away from that. And if I can be sort of looking at the kind of Joe Rogan thing, then that he's got incredible guests as well. So
yeah,
very, very interesting.
It's kind of similar to this format, but
yes, it is
done a million times better because he's a great host.
But he's had a lot of years as professionally speaking for nearly his whole life.
That's
so
true.
For him, we're not. We're just a couple of Glaswegians here, just taking a wee fucking chance, aren't we?
I know. Try and make a quick buck. No, not at all. But yeah, he came from a comedy background as well,
Yes,
so he's
he
obviously
did.
got that kind of like natural gravitas of being performing and
Timing and all those things that are a bit of a skill, definitely.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. I would never imagine you to be listening to a podcast like Joe Rogan. I don't know why, and I think that's maybe just everybody listens to him, I suppose.
I think so. He's the number one podcaster, isn't he? So, and he just comes up with things all the time, and you just get the most interesting guests, and they're so varied. Mm-hmm. I remember him talking about there was Elon Musk coming on, and how he was shitting himself because, of the intelligence of Elon Musk, supposedly he's a genius, and how he would ask the questions to him and how quite concerned he was about that. So it just goes to show that even people like him can be a bit daunted by some of the guests that they get on as well. Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't matter for me. I get nervous about anybody coming on at this stage. I'm still working on my confidence, but
me too.
It's a completely brand new field for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you do outside of podcasting for a living?
I work for my friend's company. He has a very large cleaning company in London and one small contract here in Scotland. And so I look after that for him. And when I'm not doing that, I do some extra work for movies and TV shows and stuff like that. It's fairly new for me. I've only been doing it for a couple of years and I just absolutely love it.
Yep.
Just love it. Not because you're ever seen, because you're absolutely never seen,
Yep.
but I've met such incredible people and great conversations and people I would never, ever have met in my life, because when you're doing that kind of work, most of it you're sitting down and a tiny part of it you're on the set. So the biggest part is either sitting with a book or me tapping people's shoulders and saying, hiya, tell us about yourself. Tell us a wee bit about yourself then, and getting into conversation with people. So I just love it. And because I live on my own as well, I love the company. So that's a good thing for me.
Aye, I know.
It's really enjoyable.
You and I both share that kind of same passion for the film and TV and doing extra work. And
Absolutely.
I was sharing my horror story with you when we were sat down for coffee about Outlander that I'd been cast in, and got fitted for the costume, done the COVID test, and then I just completely shat it. And was like, the day before filming, I was just an anxious wreck. I was uncomfortable with how I looked. I had to shave my beard, and I'm very rarely without facial hair. Yeah. And I was just in my own head, and I just emailed the agency being like, I'm so sorry, this is so unprofessional, but I can't do this tomorrow. I just physically can't. It's too anxiety riddled, and I'm trying to avoid that at all costs. So I have to drop out. Apologies.
But look at the journey you had to get there with your 2 trains and your taxis and I mean, I wouldn't even have attempted that. I wouldn't even have attempted it. And that's what I was saying to you. There has been over the last few years quite a lot of filming in particularly in the centre of Glasgow. The last one I did was in Salt Market, a night shift in Salt Market, and so I have been to quite a few that are in Glasgow. So maybe that's the key the next time to say, look, guys, I don't drive, so there's no point in putting me out to Helensburgh or somewhere where because a lot of the locations are really remote, and unless you drive, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned that in the email. I was just like, it's costing me a fortune to get there. I don't have the money because I don't have a job at the moment. Yeah. And it was just, I guess it was my body telling me I'm not ready.
No, I think it was the journey. I would never have taken that on for the journey. I think, God, hats off to you that you would have spent all that money and 2 trains. And my God, they should have paid you just for your level of commitment and said, listen, keep that guy. Look what he's done to try to get here.
Yeah.
Even the studios I've been to in sort of, they're not in Cumbernauld, they're kind of out at Bathgate. I mean, if you didn't drive, there's just no way that you could get there. They're in the back of beyond, literally off the M8. So there definitely is that. And I think, good on you for making such a massive attempt. Yeah. They should have been applauding you.
It was almost like a lifelong dream to do it. And
yeah, but it can still be done though, Callum.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And, there's loads of agencies that I can tell you about that you can, the more you're in, the more chances you have of work.
Yeah, and the agency were great with me, to be honest. They understood. They were annoyed. You could tell they were annoyed, but of course they would be. Somebody's dropped out. It affects them. It makes them look bad, but they paid me for the time that I did go and do it. Right. But they were kind of like, we need to block you for 6 months because, this isn't the done thing and this is our rules and we have to stick to it. But
I'll tell you what, you need to just completely fuck off and not go back to them. I think that's completely wrong. How very dare they treat you like that? So you just take these agencies that I'll give you, Callum, let's just fucking nicely walk away from that and say, okay, accept this man for what he did. That's not fair. So.
I know. Part of me, I'm taking accountability for fucking them about. But what kind of...
You did your best.
What stuff have you been in that we would know?
I was in something called Crime. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was a Crime 1 and a Crime 2. God, there was that really famous Scottish actor, Dougie something. Henshaw? No, that's Douglas Henshaw. Dougie... And I can't remember the name of the... And it was actually we were filming in the Marriott, of all places, so it was really handy. It was very... And then we did some filming in Maryhill as well. So I did that. Then I was in Batgirl. That was the movie that was so bad they wouldn't release it. You remember that?
Yeah.
Somebody said, you shouldn't tell anybody that. I don't know. It was so exciting. It was the most exciting thing ever. And it was in the Salt Market and it was in a night shift and it was January. It was freezing, absolutely freezing. But there was just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm thinking, what are your jobs? What do you all actually do here? But this was I think it was the first Warner Brothers film that was ever done in Glasgow, and too bad it didn't work out.
Yeah, and I think some fans are clamouring to get it released, whether it's horrendous or not. I think they want to see it somehow, and you know, there's Brendan Fraser was in it, and Michael Keaton was returning as Batman in it apparently, and I guess that would have been quite a weird experience to see Glasgow as Gotham City and be a part of it.
Yeah, it wasn't. They actually had an old building and set a fire in it. I think that Brendan Fraser was a fireman in it. I definitely saw him on the set with a big fireman thing, and I thought to myself, that looks like Brendan Fraser, but except he's put on 6 stone. So I'm not sure if it is and who ate all the pies.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if that's him or not. But it was interesting to see the real fire brigade there helping all the guys that were dressed up as fire brigade, and all these cars that were old American cars that had on the registration plates at the bottom Gotham City, because when you go to these things, they will not tell you where it is that you're going. So, not tell you where you're going, they won't tell you what it is, so you don't tell people what it is. And so we arrive on this set at 11 o'clock at night in the Salt Market, junkies, hanging about at the bottom. Well, you're fucking Dean up there, and all the American...
You Batwoman, aye!
And the American guys going saying, what are they saying? I said, you don't want to know. You don't want to know what they're saying. It was really, really exciting. So we didn't know, as always, what we're going for. And as soon as I saw the registration thing on the cars, and all the cars said Gotham City under the reg number, I thought, we're in a Batman film. This is incredible. I can't believe this. So it was absolutely great. And I've been trying my hand to try and get into Outlander. I'm a big, big fan of Outlander. I would love, love, love to be on it. Yeah. But they don't take you if you've got dyed hair. So I'm thinking to myself, well, there must be fucking 2 women in that, because every woman I know has got dyed hair. Yeah. But they just apparently don't. So
yeah,
I would love, very picky. Yeah. But a lot of the guys I was with and had been in it, and were they're telling great stories about who they met and what they did, and it's really good.
That was going to be my first job into the world, which I thought was quite good. I've never seen the show, I knew nothing about it.
Oh really?
So I was kind of like, what do I do? And they'd brung me in to be a red coat originally, so they fitted me for the red coat costume, and then I went home. I was on my way home, they phoned me and were like, can you come back? We've fitted you for the wrong costume. And I was like, oh, great. I was almost home after the 4 trains, 2 taxis. Oh, God. And I was like, right, I'll go back. And I just jumped off at the next stop, got on my way back, and I got fitted for a costume for a kind of American new kind of, I think they're new characters, and they're like Continentals or something like that. And I loved the costume. I remember saying to the girl that was fitting me for the costumes, like, I'd wear this jacket. They were fitting me for like big boots.
We're watching you like a hawk to make sure they get it back.
But yeah, just the night before, I just totally panicked, and I don't like myself without any facial hair, so I was overly critical of myself, and I've obviously put on a bit of weight as well, so I looked horrendous on camera. I look like Brendan Fraser.
You could have been his stand. But there just is so much work in Scotland just now, so I would not give up, and it is really exciting, and just meeting such incredible people and seeing how it works, how this whole thing works from the other side. It's fascinating, really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I found myself, I was the new keen guy. I was asking everything, and I probably would be like that on set. I'd be like, right, what are you doing? What are we doing here?
I think everybody is, and I was the same. I was in something called Omens as well, and that was set in Soho, and that was brilliant. And there must have been about 400 or 500 of us on that set. I'd never been on anything like that before, and that was absolutely brilliant. And I meet people that I still speak to today from that. So it was lovely. It's really nice. I definitely want to go back and do it again.
Yeah, I've only had that one experience, but do they tell you when it's going to air, or do they give you any information being like, right, this is part of episode 9 and or what? No, no. So you pretty much have to watch the show to be like, there's me.
You might not even see yourself because they might edit you out.
True.
That can happen. I remember in the one we did in the Marriott, which was crime, I was in it for a minute. I was a person checking in to the hotel with another woman, and you could just see me from the back, and that was it. But it's more about being on the set and the excitement of the massive big cameras and just all the people involved in herding us around and stop everything. It's lunchtime now. Food is fabulous.
Aye?
Absolutely fantastic food. Lovely choices, and you get proper time to sit down, and coffee and tea throughout the day, and you do get well looked after.
Yeah. Well, I missed that then, because I mean, we were sitting right next to where there was like a breakfast bar, and everything had gone by that point. So it was kind of like, picking the crumbs. But
no, don't close the door on it. That's
No.
all I'm saying. I think you would love it. Honestly, I do.
I think it's just been one of those things that like I want to tick off to say I've done. So it was something I revisit, but I took it for, right, you obviously don't want to do it then, because you've chickened out and you've been like, right, you don't want to do it really.
The moment wasn't right for you.
Yeah.
That's it. End of.
Yeah.
Let's look forward. There's loads and loads of agencies, loads of work in Scotland just now. So there's never been a better time.
Yeah, there's lots of films filmed.
Yeah.
So outside of that, do you have any other pop culture interests at all?
I'm a wee bit fascinated fairly recently about Andy Warhol. So
Right.
I don't really know how it was that I picked up his autobiography. So I sort of remember as I was growing up, there was a sort of Andy Warhol thing going on in the background, but not until I read his book did I realise what an absolutely crazy and fascinating person he was. And this offices that they had called the Factory, they had 3 of them throughout the 60s up to the 80s. And the stuff that went on in there was just people walking around all day just doing nothing, and he was painting in the middle of all this, and he would sometimes give people and this was in the book, and the paintings that were created from this were called the peeing paintings. He would give people a vitamin and say, come back tomorrow, I want you to pee on my painting. So that is just wild and debauched, and it was just crazy. And I really kind of, I got to that through my real love of Lou Reed. Not so much the Velvet Underground, but Lou Reed per se, and read his autobiography as well. And was saddened and horrified to read that in the 60s when he was young, because his family just couldn't cope with his wild behaviour, he was put in for electric shock treatment. Can you imagine that? Yeah, he was put into the hospital and they gave him electric shock treatment. They felt at that time that was the right thing to do. And that affected the whole of his life because it wiped out some of his memory and changed him as a man. So he was a very troubled character, brilliant songwriter, very successful with the Velvet Underground. Still has a real niche today, the Velvet Underground, and a big part of Andy Warhol's story as well. And they used to perform in the Factory and his thing. But so I'm a little bit fascinated by that, and fascinated by his art.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Lou Reed, because I love his stuff, and I don't mind the Velvet Revolver. That's another band, Velvet Underground. But my favourite Lou Reed song, Satellite of Love.
Is it?
I love that song. Yeah.
My favourite is Perfect Day.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good song.
It's so beautiful. But what's interesting about it is that every time I listen to it, and I listen to it a lot, I think he's a great example of perfectly imperfect, because his voice is quite warbly. In that song particularly, it kind of goes a wee bit like that. So it's not a perfect voice in any sense. And he sometimes does not hit the notes at all. But that's part of the imperfection and wonderfulness of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree.
So I'm fascinated by him. I would love. I was around at those times, and part of my life was I was kind of looking on at a wee bit of debauchery, nothing to the degree it was going on over there. So I kind of just think, if I was living in New York, then there's no doubt I'd have been involved in that.
Yeah,
there's no two ways. I would have loved all of that.
Yeah.
All of that stuff going on.
And Andy Warhol, he's got such classic imagery with his artwork, the Debbie Harry one,
The Queen.
The Queen
as well. Yeah.
It's just, he's such a pop culture icon, really, but I don't know a huge amount about him, but I just know if I had to walk by something, be like, right, that's Andy Warhol, because that's what you want as an artist, don't you? You want people to be like, especially if it's a band, listen, you're like, right, that's that band, because they have that unique sound, and he had that unique
But he was very ridiculed by the rest of the art world, because he wasn't. He did lots of his stuff on print presses. So the other artists would just not accept him within his world, because they would just say what you're doing has nothing to do with art. And he was not recognised so much in America as he was in Europe, in Germany, places like that. Even in the UK, he was, and of course he was not out as a gay man. But he was very, very gay, and very gay friendly, and very pro drag queens. And in those days, that's nothing now, but in those days, that was really quite, unusual way to live. So people couldn't really make head or tail of him.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, the whole Campbell's soup thing is all about him just having a huge disdain for Middle America. And he just said, this describes the whole of Middle America.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, interesting. And coming from an immigrant family and a very ill child, and, you know, but he was determined to be famous. And it was Andy Warhol who said, everybody should have their own 15 minutes of fame. That's where that phrase came from.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there is this thing on Netflix called the Andy Warhol Diaries, and it's in 3 episodes if ever you want to have a look at it. I've just decided to go back and look at it. I was speaking to Mark about it the other day, and I thought, I'm going to have a look at that again. So it's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
I mean, so it was the late 60s, his stuff kind of
right
came
through
out.
to the 80s,
right
yeah.
through to the 80s.
Sort of his high days were kind of in the 70s. You know, but he was, I mean, you know, he was a real celebrity and mixed with not just celebrities, but politicians and, you know, Mick Jagger, how many of the Beatles, David Bowie, all of these, you know, people from the UK made a point of going over to the factory and being photographed with them and asking for their pictures to be done. And
yeah, I remember him in the Doors movie about Jim Morrison. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't,
with Val Kilmer playing
all right.
Jim Morrison, and
yeah.
he's fantastic in that. But there's a bit in the Andy Warhol kind of world that you get to see what it was like in that late 60s, and
Wild.
It's incredible. Yeah,
Absolutely wild.
I mean, a lot of the stuff now would be frowned upon, probably, but back then it was probably even more frowned upon.
Frowned about. Absolutely. But he said he created a space in the factory for people to be who they wanted to be. And, you know, you would just see gay guys, you know, doing what they were doing on a sofa. Over here, over there was Jackie Kennedy. And over here there would be politicians. You had all these, this incredible mix of people that you would never have put together under any circumstances except in the factory in New York.
Aye, it's wild.
Yeah.
And we have to speak about the podcast because you just released your first episode. So for people out there that don't know, what can you tell us without spoiling the podcast? What can you tell us about it?
So the podcast is called Unmuzzled at 67, and I felt it was my time to tell my story, and I had this idea that I wanted to tell my story on a podcast. I didn't really want to interview anybody, but I wanted to use a podcast platform to tell my life story. So I came to the podcast studios here in Glasgow just with an idea that that's what I wanted to do, but I came with nothing else. I had zero experience, I hadn't really even thought it through about what this would be involved in, what I would have to do to make this work. So there were a couple of false starts in the beginning when I suddenly thought, I'm going to have to write a script for 20 minutes. So, you know, I used to do little things on Facebook and, you know, 5-minute things, and found that quite difficult. And I thought, Christ, how am I going to write all this? So there was, as I said, a few false starts, and there was a few times we had to reschedule because I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. So so the story is about my life, really, and we're hoping to do it in 3 seasons. So we've actually filmed the first season, which is about my life from sort of age 11 up to 30. And then the next season will be my life from 30 up to 60. And then the rest is about recovery. So I'm kind of galloping towards recovery because I really want to talk about that more than anything else. But we have to understand where you come from to understand where we are now. And the reason that I wanted to do a podcast, Callum, was I felt that it would help me to understand me, to say things out loud. It would help me to understand me and help me to accept the life that I had and not the life that I would have liked to have had. So it's almost like coming to terms with that. And I think, you know, when I was 60, I just felt emotionally and spiritually spent. I just thought, Christ, it's taken everything from me to survive my own life. And at 60, it's a time for reflection, but it's also a time to look forward. And, you know, there's a time in your life when things should be calming down a wee bit. And so I was kind of put, if you like, into the place to learn how to meditate. That was the biggest thing that happened. Yeah,
and you got a lot from meditation, and we'll get into that in just a second. But sharing your story, and being as open about it as possible, like that, for me, that's very admirable, because you're just being like, I don't care what people think, this is my story, it's part of my journey, and I'm just going with it. And how did it feel revisiting it to record it? You know, because writing a script, it's difficult,
so hard,
but you're revisiting
so
the stuff as well.
Yeah. I think because I'm so old now, and because these things happened when I was like 12 and 13, that I've kind of disassociated myself in a way, because it's such a long time ago. But I suppose there are moments where I think, oh my God, you know, is this really the right thing? But then what comes into to do this so publicly, what comes into my mind is that this is my time. And I am not a person who would think, maybe I'm too old to do a podcast. Maybe this is just being stupid. My age would never hold me back from doing anything at all. I just think, if this is my time, I'm going to see if these guys will take me on. And thankfully they did. And the lovely Cam, who has been my mentor, whether he wants to or not, apparently. So I'm just very lucky, like you, Callum, that we found the podcast studios, because I don't think we could ever have found better people to work with. So much patience, particularly with, me more than you, but in terms of being quite new to this, not being proper podcasters as such. So,
I mean, I'm completely new to it as well. Again, I came up here with an idea, and I probably wasn't fully convinced that I was going to follow through on it. I just came up here, saw the studio to think, right, is this what I want to do? And then I actually came, like the week after, I booked a session, and it was just like, right, this is what I want to do. And it was so nerve-wracking, because you're not used to being in front of cameras, and like, you seem to like that though. You seem to enjoy the being on camera and comfortable with it, whereas I'm the opposite. I chose to do an audio only because I don't want to look at myself.
Right.
But
mine had to be videoed from the very start, even although there was a point where even Cam said to me, maybe this should be audio, because I was really struggling to write these big scripts, to come to terms with them, to present them properly. But the camera is no problem for me. The thing is my writing good enough? And my presentation skills good enough? And having looked at series 1 that we've already filmed, then I would be looking to try to improve on that.
Yeah.
For me, try to be better, a bit more professional. The story is still raw. The story is still very transparent. That doesn't change. But I think if you can better present it, maybe people understand it a wee bit more. Or
yeah, no, I think because you're taking accountability and you're showing your story by being on film. You know, it's making you more relatable as well, because you know, could just be audio only, like an audiobook, and you're like, I don't know this person, they're telling me their story, but I don't know them. But because we can actually see you, and you're very, very good at it, like,
thank you.
and your delivery is perfect,
oh
and
God,
everything.
do you think so?
Yeah,
oh,
like, there's only been one episode so far, and immediately after the 20-minute mark was over, I was like, right, where's the rest of it? I want the rest of it.
Oh my God, how nice of you to say that. Thank you. Because it doesn't feel like that when you're doing it. In fact, we had to do it twice, and I said to Cam, I says, I'm fucking bored. I'm bored to death fucking listening to her. I says, no, we'll need to do this again, Cam. This isn't working for me at all. So we did it again and kind of condensed it a wee bit more. And I think it did come across a wee bit better. I was extremely nervous, like you, the first time. I was extremely nervous. I was even shaking and worrying about the words and worrying. Now I'm not. I just want to improve. I think anything you do, you want to get better at it. And I guess that's what I want to do as well. Yeah,
and that's the same. We're both at the same stage, really. I'm trying to work on my confidence and technique and improve and ask better questions. And, you know, it's the most nerve-wracking thing ever, because it's your story as well. Like, for me, I at least have a guest on to kind of camouflage myself with, but you're bearing your soul, and that's it's honestly like so refreshing to have someone just be like, I don't give a fuck who judges me, who says this. This is my story, that's part of me, and I'm proud of it either way, no matter what the mistakes are that you've.
But in the end of the day, you know, almost every episode I have to give out these disclaimers, you know, and say there is swearing, or there is this, there is that. So therefore, for me, because I do that, and Cam always reminds me to do that, that if there's something in here that people don't like and it could be offensive, then I just say, beat it. Or maybe I should be saying scroll on, but I just said beat it the first time. But in other words, don't select me. You know, Spotify is a massive platform. There are so many things that you can watch, so you don't have to watch me.
Yeah.
And if you don't like me and you don't like what I'm saying, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I'm fine with that. Just you've got about 10 million things to choose from on Spotify and on Instagram as well. You know, don't watch me if you don't like it.
I think there's something nice about that as well. You're not being like, right, everybody needs to watch me. I've got an audience. I want everybody to be my audience. I think that's nice that you're like, my audience will be my audience and that'll be what it is.
I'm quite relaxed about that, and I'm not. The old me would have said, oh my God, Cam, stop the whole thing. Nobody's watched me on Spotify. That's it. It's not going to work. And now I'm not like that. And now I would just say, do you know what? If this happens, it happens. It's all about the journey and enjoying it. And if it's picked up or somebody likes it, that is great. And if it makes somebody stop and think about their own mental health and how they are thinking, how they are behaving, then that would even be better. You know? Because unfortunately, I started to unravel at 60. And as I've said to you, it's too late. It's not too late, don't get me wrong, not at all. But I would like to think that if anybody listens to this, they would maybe say, God, well, I don't want to be 60. I'm a bit like her, but I don't want to end up being like her. I want to stop this now. So that would be a huge thing for me. Yeah,
my therapist always used to put it as like, you're the old man sitting in the chair and you're thinking back on your life.
Yes.
Do you want to regret everything or do you want to enjoy it? And like that's... For me, I looked at my situation. I was like, I don't want to be a bitter old man that's taking everything out on everybody else because I didn't help myself.
Yeah, but we see that, don't we? We do see examples of that and of women too.
Yeah.
I sort of describe myself as the oldest baby in the world because I've just been born at this age. And I know that is a real cliche, but that is actually how it feels for me, that I've kind of shed off my old skins through the work I've done in therapy and other things. And I really feel that I'm born, and I quite like myself now. I never liked myself. I was always fighting with myself and at war with myself. So life is a bit more peaceful these days, and that is very welcome.
It's refreshing to hear that from somebody else who's, you know, I'm the exact same, and a lot of we have similar traits. I think that's why we've kind of pulled towards each other
Probably,
a bit. But when you said you recorded again, did you record it all again, or was it just episode 1?
Just episode 1, because I think I was so nervous as well, and I just was rambling on it, because I do ramble, there's no two ways about it, but so I try to sort of time myself at home, you know, is to try to make sure I'm within that 20 minutes, and sometimes they're shorter, and if I feel that's enough, then I'll just make it 12 minutes or whatever. I'm not going to add in things for the sake of filling up to 20 minutes if it's not irrelevant.
All killer, no thriller. All killer, no filler.
Exactly. So I thought it was quite funny how that first episode kind of, now that I look at it and I think, I don't know why I put that story about the periods in, because the first part was quite kind of serious, and I don't know why I decided to put that in, but it's one of my favourite stories about me. It's one of my favourite stories, and I remember it as if it was yesterday, because it's so poignant for any young girl when that happens to you for the first time. So I thought, I'm not sure those things really fused, but we'll wait and see.
As a guy, I was like, oh fuck, we're going there. But no, again, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, you know. So for me, I can't wait to hear more, because I'm fascinated by not only your journey, but all these things that I'm going to learn, you know.
Oh God, I don't know that. But I think as well, the other thing that's quite interesting about this is the time that we lived in then, you know, living in the 60s and 70s, and how people lived and what their standards were, and for anybody young looking at how how things are treated now. I mean, you're 6 years old, you know, but periods, maybe even before that. So it's just about also a window into how things were looked at and how people behaved, and it was so different from how we are now.
And you've obviously had to learn social media, which is something that you don't like, but we both don't like it. We have to do it because it's part of the role. But that's learning a completely new thing. And did you do social media before and then decide you didn't like it, or was it like a thing that you've just never been a part of, so you were just like, nah, I'm not touching that?
I've never really been a part of it, but then I started a Facebook group, and I was talking about how when people get old, they become beige, and how they kind of are pushed into the background and are not seen as vital anymore. And I had a bit of a thing about that, and I had this Facebook page, and I was sort of telling some quite funny stories and things. and I quite liked that. But the overall aspect of, I hadn't had a Facebook page before that. I just opened one to start this wee group thing that I wanted to do. And then when I came off it, and I look at how many young people, like my son is in his 30s, he's come off everything now. Doesn't even, I think he's on Twitter, but he doesn't do anything now. And he says how much better he feels. And there's a lot of people coming off it now, Callum, completely, and young people, because I think it is absolutely toxic.
Yeah.
I really absolutely do. And people are saying to me, God, I find I've got so much time in my hands now. I didn't realise how much time I was spending scrolling, and so
the less time we spend on it, the better. But we obviously need to be on it quite a lot. But
I don't think I do it right. I mean, you said you've learned social media. I think that's pushing things a wee bit. I think Cam would go, no, she hasn't. No, even a wee bit.
Well, you managed to post a video.
Well,
so.
I post videos quite regularly because I do, but I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do on Instagram. I don't think it probably is, but I guess that's just, again, saying, look, I'm 67, and I've talked before about the fact that we can't write us off just because we don't know about social media. We're not digital because we weren't born in that age, and we're not stupid, but we just don't get that. And for me, I'm not even interested in it.
Yeah.
So I'm a very reluctant user.
Aye. And how did you feel on Wednesday when you put the first episode out? Did you feel anxious? Do you think, I've put this out there now? Like, was there more, or were you prepared for that ahead of the time?
I didn't even think about it, Callum, because I just, all I could think about was I played a tiny part in that how it looked, how it was perceived, how it even got onto Spotify at all came from the podcast studio. Yeah. I really felt that I had what was achieved. I mean, it's a big thing for me, don't get me wrong, at my age to be in Spotify. Of course, it's a huge thing, but the actuality of it for me was that if Cam hadn't been there, none of this would be possible. I could have a great story here to tell, but if I didn't have someone who could facilitate it, I would never have got there. Yeah. So it's up now, and I'm thrilled, but without all the help that I got from him, it would never have been possible, Cam.
Aye. So I just got too in my own head about it. When I put the first episode out there, I was like, right, I've done everything that I've set out to achieve. I've come up with an idea for a podcast, recorded the first episode, it's out there now. It's on Spotify, which still was surreal to me when I'm on my phone and I see it coming up. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is wild. And you kind of get a little bit of I can only really amount it to performing on stage. When you've performed on stage and you've got that high and you come off and nothing matches that high, and you're like, you go into a little bit of a downer because you're like,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Because you've got that high and you want to just hang on to it for as long as you can, and then you come off stage and you're kind of like, you've got all this energy and excitement and you're just sitting, doing nothing. And I think for me, like, doing this gives me the buzz, and then putting the episode out gives me the kind of like fear factor of, oh fuck, like what if people don't like it? But I'm reading that and I'm starting to think,
well, I would like to say to you, get it up them. If they don't like it, that is their pigeon, as they would say in the 60s.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with you. No. You have to be true to yourself, and that's what you're doing. So if people don't like it, scroll on. That's all you have to do.
And that's it. And, I'm constantly posting about my progress and being like, I've got to 50 downloads, I've got to 100 downloads. Like, I still can't believe that anyone's listening, the fact that people are listening. So I guess I'm segueing into saying thank you to everybody that's listening so far.
Of course.
But what do you want to achieve from the podcast?
So I think the purpose was to tell my story. It is raw, it is uncensored, and helping me to understand and accept my life, as I said earlier, the way that it was. Because up until recently, you just kind of think, well, that was my life. You haven't got another life. You've only got the one life, so you don't really know it's that much different from everybody else's. And I feel so that I was guided to do this. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but I just feel that I don't remember making any real conscious decisions about this. I just seem to find myself moving in this direction. And I did see that last year I was telling my story to this woman that I just had met, and it was just a completely random thing. And she had said to me, oh my God, that's quite a story, Christine. I says, she says, do you think you could think about writing a book? Oh, I said, not at all. I couldn't write a book. I said, no, I couldn't tell anybody. And here I am 1 year later, and it's fucking out on Spotify. So
I know.
what happened? I
It's-
don't know. I don't know what happened.
It's mental the progress you can make in a year, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like
yeah.
we seem to get lost in like when you get to 30, you're like, I've done nothing with my life. I need to do something. You have a little bit of a midlife crisis, but like taking that step and seeing that actually time's not a big deal. You know what I mean? Like a year for me doesn't seem like a long time, but I've achieved so much in a year, and you have as well, because you've got from that stage you've been like, nah, nobody wants to hear my story, to now sharing it, and it's going to be out there. So for me, that's amazing. And I just can't wait to tune into each episode and find out, because I'm purposely trying not to get to know you in a way, like asking the questions that you're going to be telling me in the recordings. I'm trying not to spoil anything for anybody, but you from chatting, you did mention that you had spent a lot of your life in the hotel industry.
Yes, I did.
And what kind of role did you get, like a promotion, or was it like, have you been in the same role for a long time, or how did it come about? Did you just start as like a receptionist and work your way up?
Well, I started as working in bars, and it's part of my story to know that there came a point where I wasn't able to work in bars anymore. And so I met this guy, and he just liked me, and he said to me, my executive housekeeper is on sick leave just now, so you're going to be it. So that's your office down there, and this is this. Oh, I says, for fuck's sake, I've no idea what I'm meant to do here. No idea at all. So I just grabbed somebody and they showed me, and that was it. So most of my life was spent being an executive housekeeper, and that sounds very posh, but all you are really is in charge of the cleaners,
right?
All the people that are incredibly important to make sure that everything is clean, to make sure that when you arrive into a hotel that your room is ready for you, and that that's spotless and you've got everything that you need in the hotel. And so I very quickly started to work in 5-star hotels, just the way things worked out. I found I had a little bit of a niche for it, although it's the irony of life that I was successful in that job, but I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated every moment of the day of it. And I was, because of stuff I was going through, I was quite a difficult employee, it's quite difficult to handle. I was quite childlike if I wasn't happy with things, and but I did get a chance to work in Dubai. I did get a chance to work in London. I worked in a couple of hotels in London. One of them was an absolutely incredible hotel on the outskirts of London in Hertfordshire, and the other one was right in Whitehall, in London, in Whitehall. And I was asked to go to help that hotel move from a 4-star up to a 5. So to show them, this is what we do in a 5-star hotel, and this is the levels of service, and this is the levels of housekeeping, and da-da-da. So I was there for about a year. And I did quite a wee bit of consultancy work as well, helping other people, just with the knowledge that I had gained over the time. So, but it's a hard job working in a hotel,
Yeah.
And, you're looking at 50, 60 hours a week as a normal thing. So people don't have a life. Their whole identity is through their job. And I was very aware of that myself at the time. I thought, Christ, if you ever give up this job, I wonder who you'll be underneath that. Seriously saying to myself, because there just was no time to do anything else. And when there was time, you were too tired to do anything else. So it's not a genre that I would happily say to people to go into. I have met some really nice people. I have got quite a funny story about when Prince, a big Prince fan, right?
I was going to ask, have you met any celebrities?
Well, I didn't meet him, but this is a story of Glaswegianness towards Prince. Prince came to a hotel. I don't want to mention the names of the hotels. Prince came to a hotel that I worked in Glasgow. And everybody's going, and the Glaswegian women say, oh, that fucking Prince is coming. We're dead excited. Think we'll get a chance to see him. Who knows? We don't know if we'll get a chance to see him. Where are they putting him? Up in the penthouse. Oh, that's great. Or the maids are saying, no, I want to work at penthouse. I want to get a wee look at him and all that. So anyway. So I'm doing the stairs saying, you'll no believe what that fucking Prince is wanting now. What? He's wanting the fucking Wendy's black too. The fucking guy's on the 20th flare. It's a fucking wanting, and then you get the engineering department in, and they're going to go out and get fucking black paint. See this? See you next Tuesday. See this guy? Fucking pest of hell. I hope he doesn't come fucking back. So I was telling Mark that story, and I thought that is just so gorgeous, because that is just the Glaswegianness of people, and it's totally unimpressed.
Yep.
Completely and utterly
I don't give a
unimpressed
fuck
by-
who you are.
Aye.
Prince.
A fucking pest.
You're a-
That's who he is. A fucking pest of hell.
You're a prince of fuck all, mate.
So funny. And the other lovely person that I met was Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really special. And that was just a kind of just arrived on the floor that he was on. Oh my God, the entourage he had was massive. Loads of women in these brightly coloured dresses.
Shag
and
it.
big, what?
Shag it.
And the big bows and, cheeky, quite cheeky, the women.
Aye.
Aye. And they were saying, see that cheeky bastard? She asked me to go and get her a cup of water and she can stick it up her arse. I'm not going for her. Spit in it, Isa. I fucking will spit in it. All that stuff going on. Yeah. And they were quite demanding, but he was, literally physically surrounded by huge big guys and these women. And so I was up on the floor. I don't know why I was up there. And he was in this special suite that we would reserve for VIPs. And he just happened to walk out the door. I was quite taken aback at the height of him and the actual presence of him.
Yep.
I felt there was like an aura around him, and I've never seen that in a person before. I really was quite transfixed. But I was able to come out with a few quippy things, as you do, being a Glaswegian. I said, "Good morning, Mr. Mandela, how are you?" He said, "I'm very well." Spoke very slow. "Very well. How are you?" I said, "Really good." I said, "You're looking great, if I may say so. I hope you've had your porridge this morning." He said, "I absolutely have." And then one of these big guys came and grabbed him. So I only really spoke to him for seconds, but I would remember it until I died because of anybody that I've ever met in my life. And I haven't met a lot of people because I'm quite shy. I know you wouldn't believe that, but I'm quite shy with new people. And I don't, everybody's saying, "Oh, we're going up to see President Clinton, get a wee word with him and all that," or "We're going to see Billy Connolly." And I would kind of always hang back. So I just met him completely randomly. But what a beautiful presence.
Yeah.
Really and truly, I'll never, ever forget that for what, one sentence exchanged?
I know, and that's
just incredible.
Like a lot of people are like, who would you want to meet, dead or alive? Nelson Mandela's always on a lot of that lists, and for you
I
to
can understand why. I
can
understand why.
And it's great that he's exactly what you think he would be as well.
Yeah, I just felt you don't need to say anything. That's what I just felt, because I just feel that you're giving me something by not saying anything, and that, I think that's quite magical. I've never felt like that about anybody that I've met. So that was lovely. I think it was over when they were naming Nelson Mandela Square. I think that's a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
But he was lovely, and as always, most of these very famous people are usually nice. Billy Connolly is extremely nice. It's always the entourage that come around with him. They are the difficult, demanding people, and those women were very demanding. But they were, the Glasgow women would teach them a thing or two, wouldn't they?
Yep.
She'll fucking wait. She fucking hang. I'm going to run after her. Aye, I'll be fucking right. I'm away from my tea. I'll get her water after that. All that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And of course, as the boss, you've got to say, "Look, come on, make an effort. Get to fuck. I'll get her after." What are you going to say? I was killing myself laughing. I couldn't stop laughing anyway. So.
And what is the jump between a 4-star and a 5-star? Is it just a lot of shite, or what is the jump?
There's some physical things. One is that you have to have a 24-hour room service. So if you don't, you could be the most beautiful hotel aesthetically, but if you don't that, you need to have that. And most people would judge it in levels of service. So you're going to a 5-star hotel, you'll probably see a waiter standing like that with one hand behind them, and these things like that, and the training that people get. I would probably say to see 5-star in action. The Balmoral in Edinburgh, I worked there myself for a couple of years, it's got to be one of the best hotels in Scotland for me. Yeah. And the other one that I like, strangely enough, is Donald Trump's Turnberry. Now, obviously, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Who is? Maybe there might be some people.
Quite a lot of people.
Right, okay, so I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. But what you forget is it's got nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's designers that choose all of this. So I loved it because the carpets were that thick. There's a chandelier about every 6 yards on the ceiling, and it's incredibly glamorous. And in the bathrooms they have pink marble, and apparently he has his own marble mine, and that's where I've never seen pink marble before. No, I've seen loads and loads of different green, brown, black, and white, all that sort of thing, but I've never seen pink. So I really like that hotel as well. I think it's lovely. And the levels of service are very good in Turnberry, very nice. And it's right, right on the sea. So you've got all the golf course, but you've got a beautiful view as you sit there and look out and have a wee cup of tea or whatever. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Really
and
nice.
With you being trained on all of that, being in a 5-star hotel, do you expect that from like service? Do you feel like everybody can up their skills, or do you go away being like, fucking, you wouldn't make it in a 5-star hotel? Or is it something that you're critical of when you're going to places, or do you just not eat in those places anyway?
Very critical. That surprised you. I'm like that.
The reason I asked, because I actually know a guy that was a butler. I mean, I know you don't call them butlers, but
no, we do call them butlers actually. Yeah.
And we were at Hotel Duvan for a Christmas night.
Which one? The one in Glasgow?
The one in Glasgow,
That's
yeah.
Lovely. Yeah.
And he was always like, "Fucking waiters are rubbish. They're rubbish. Like, I can't believe they've got people doing this and doing that. It's not the way you properly serve wine. That's not what you do." And I was just like, Jesus, I didn't know that exists.
Well, that would just spoil your whole night, wouldn't it? So I don't think that's
no,
fair.
but I got it, and then I got chatting with him, and I understood it. But that level, I can just think that if I was brought up in that level, I would expect that everywhere. In
a 5-star hotel, which Hotel Duvan is not. Hotel Duvan is 4.
Yeah.
So that's maybe why you didn't get the best waiter, or you didn't get the best service, because it's a 4-star hotel, and there is quite a big difference, especially in levels of service. So
yeah.
But then I think in the UK, to really experience great 5-star hotels, you have to go to London, because there is just nothing. The hotels in London are just incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible, really.
I know. I'm saying I know, like I've been to one. I stayed in a fucking hostel in London and in Tottenham, which was rough. And I've not got the best experience. I was fucking sleeping on a piss-stained mattress or fucking blood-ridden.
That could be a whole episode itself, I would think. So from that to 5 stars. So
I don't think I've even stayed at a 5-star.
5-star is nice even to do. I'll tell you where a nice 5-star is to go, because it's not really a proper 5-star, but it's lovely. It's Cameron House down in Loch Lomond, and it's a beautiful, beautiful setting. Loads of weddings. They deal with loads of weddings there, and just sitting out and looking at the beautiful view of Loch Lomond and having a nice tea. That's not too far to go.
Yeah.
If you can't afford or don't want to stay over, that's a place I would definitely go to. I've worked there as well.
Wow.
And it's a really nice. It's a nice place. They do their best. The beautiful spa, and so it is nice. Got lovely facilities.
I need to try it. I know my mum and dad have been, and my mum loves those kind of spa.
Oh, really?
I think that, and what's the other one that's popular? What's it called?
What is it?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But it's another kind of spa resort.
Gleneagles. Gleneagles, because that's a really famous hotel, isn't it?
What is it called? Is it called the Gleneagles?
It's called the Gleneagles.
No, it's called something else. Stobo.
Oh, Stobo, very famous.
Yeah.
Very famous for the spa.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely.
That 5-star, that 4-star, that.
I don't know much about Stobo.
Really. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm very terrible at remembering names, and I'm glad that I remembered it quick enough to
You
not.
certainly did. Saved yourself, no bother.
Imagine it's just half an
You're
hour.
asking a 67-year-old to remember. I'm the one with the fucking scripts. I'm saying to Cam, can you hear me turning the pages over here? He's going, it's all right.
No, one day we'll get to where we need to be, where we don't have scripts and we don't need a notepad or anything like that. We'll get there. I have faith.
It won't stop me. That's the thing for me. It just won't stop me. I mean,
Yeah.
I speak to Cam about these things, and even Mark says, Christian, it's fine to have your notes. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're on for a long time on your own, so it's no problem. So from there, I think, well, they're the experts. So
Yeah.
I'll just listen to what they've got to say.
Absolutely. I want to talk about you finding meditation.
Oh yeah.
You and I have that bond of mental health, and we,
What a bond.
I know, but it's great because
Yeah,
we're
because
both
it's
open
true.
about it.
Absolutely.
We're both shoot the shit about it, and
Absolutely.
you found meditation. I'm one of these people that try everything to feel better, and I haven't tried meditation yet.
Mm-hmm.
But how long did that take you to get used to? Because I know it's not just an overnight thing. You need to properly practice in your mind.
Well, of course, there's a wee story involved
Mm-hmm.
with that. And I was invited by a friend of mine on a cruise, right? And she said, they were cruisers. You'll love it, she says. Right up your street. I was thinking, I'm not sure if it is going to be. And it was fucking terrible. It was absolute. From the minute I get into this tiny wee room that I was sharing with this other woman, she was actually all right. But the whole setup was just not for me. Not at all. I thought, this is a big fucking mistake I've made here. And I'm stuck with this woman here for a fortnight, for fuck's sake. So I was really looking forward to company because I live in my own. I thought, this will be great because my friend is very funny and really nice. But she was different in holiday, and people can be like that, can't they? So it just was, it was not for me. They were loving every second, and I thought I'd never seen this before, that people go and eat all day long. So you go for the breakfast, and it's beyond anything your eyes have ever seen in your life before in terms of choice, and also the volume, how much food that you can eat. Just go back and go back, and you see people, you know, quite big people, and you see them coming out the restaurant. They go, oh. Couldn't eat another fucking thing. I'm absolutely. I don't know how I eat all that. I'm fucking full to the brim. So I can hardly make it to the lift. Actually, on the lift, go down one story. They're in another area of the boat. Is that a pizza I can smell? Do you know what I mean? And off they go. It's just all day eating. And my pal actually said to me, I hope you brought your buffet trousers. I says, what does that mean? It's elasticated waist. She says, you've never got them off you in the second week. Well, I don't eat like that, but that was funny. But anyway, the whole thing was a disaster and I hated it. But there was a guy, the entertainments manager, and he said, every Tuesday I'm going to be doing meditation. I'm going to be teaching meditation. And I'm not a meditation teacher, but I'm going to teach you how I was taught. So it was very basic, Callum. It was not anything other than, I'm going to put some music on and I want you to breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. I want your mouth to be this shape and I want you to try to clear your mind. It really was very basic things like that. So from that for me progressed into learning how to breathe properly, because there are breathing techniques that you get more out of your meditation with. And that is how I learned. But it was my time. It was my time for that. And sometimes when you learn something like that, you come back to the cruise and you forget all about it and you're on with your life. But I didn't. I kept doing it because almost from the second time, I could feel a difference. I think when, you know what they say, when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. It's just you're in the right place at the right time. So it's literally, that is all I do. I go onto YouTube, I select music, and I always select brain repair. Because I think if anybody's fucking brain needs repaired, it's mine, what it's had to deal with. So I always go in for brain repair music and put that on and put a timer on for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Sometimes it's 40. It just depends how much time I've got. And all I do is just count in my breaths and count them out. And that is it. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Where do you go? Like in your head?
In my head.
No,
in my head?
Yeah. Where does it take you? Because I'm just imagining sitting, getting frustrated, being like, right, I'm waiting for something to happen.
Nothing's going to happen.
No.
Nothing's
So it's
gonna
just like
happen.
complete zen.
It's like complete zen in terms, for me, and I think it takes a while to get to that point where you can actually think of nothing. There is not one thought going into your head. And that, for me, is the most restful and mind-nourishing experience of anything.
Yeah.
And what happens to me is that about 2 days later, I start to feel the benefit of that meditation that I've just had. It doesn't seem to work straight away. It takes a day or two to work for me, or certainly one day. And I just feel far more relaxed, and I'm able to rationalize things, and I have better ideas. So it seems to like clear out all the clutter, and I just feel more clarity, and I feel that I can trust some of the ideas that come into my head, because I have no trust with any decisions that I'm able to make, because I've made such really poor decisions. Here's the thing here to think about. Here I am at 67 working full time. Who the fuck wants to work full time at 67 unless you are in financial straits because of the terrible financial decisions I made years ago? So, you know, although there's work you can do in yourself, there's certain things that you're left with that are irreversible, you know? So I because I've made such poor decisions in my life, I don't really want to make decisions. But meditation has helped me to think now before I make any decisions, and to think about it maybe for 2 days if I feel I need to, and then have a bit more trust in the decisions that I make. That's a good feeling for me.
Is it something you do once a week, once a day, like once every month?
Once a day.
Once a day? Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes just for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes just, I say to people, try it for 5.
Mm-hmm.
Just try it for 5 minutes. Because when you start, all these thoughts come into your head. And so you feel a bit chaotic and think, well, there's no fucking point in doing this because there's all this. And that's natural. That takes a while for that to sort of go. But don't give up because of that.
Mm. I know, and it's good that I just can't imagine what it must feel like, because I have tried it, as I said, I try everything, cold baths, cold showers and exercise and, getting out dog walks and stuff like that. I try all these things because I'm basically just trying to see what works for me.
Of course.
'Cause that's the one thing that we all need to figure out with mental health. It's like your neighbour next door might want to run a marathon and that's what gets them. Me, I might be completely different. You might be completely different. Meditation's your thing.
Yes.
But I'm one that's always trying something. If I hear it's good for your mental health, I'm like, right, I'm going to get into it. Meditation's just one of those things that I'm like, I just feel like I'd be sitting and I'd be bored because I'm not doing it right. You know what I mean? I'm just that worried.
But there is no wrong or right way to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Just taking that time and that 10 minutes out your day. And
or for you, 5, it's best to not put yourself under any pressure. Put yourself there for 5, and we can talk later on about how, the actual 1, 2, 3, 4 of doing that. But that is just how simple it is for me.
Yeah, and you said that.
I just sit. I don't, like Mark was talking about, sitting on the floor, cross legs. Fuck that. It's too hard. No. I'm sitting like this, and I've got a nice wee pillow in the back of my head, and I've actually got a wee heat pad at the back of my back. Oh yes. Let's enjoy this. Let's get be comfortable and have my feet rooted on the floor, because I've always been told you need to have your feet on the floor and feel and imagine that there's actually roots growing in from your feet into the carpet in terms of you being grounded.
Yeah.
So that is all there is to it, and it's had an incredible effect on me.
Yeah, and through meditation, it's opened up all these past memories, and that's what's led you to this podcast, isn't it?
That's absolutely right.
Which is wild, because it's not something you would imagine that you would rehash in your mind when you're sitting trying to take a 10-minute cam out of the day. You've explored so many things that it's as if you were saying that it's come back to you.
But it doesn't happen while I'm meditating. It comes from meditation, but it'll maybe be a day later,
right,
where suddenly I'm doing something, peeling potatoes or putting the kettle on, and suddenly these thoughts will come into my head. And what I learned to do was just always have a big notepad with me and just write them down as they came. Some of them were very difficult to face. They were quite hard, because I realised that as things happened to me when I was younger, I didn't process them at all. They just were buried instantly. So when they start to reappear, you start to actually experience them for the very first time. Yeah. And I found that very hard to get my head around. I couldn't understand that. But it was really difficult.
And it sounds
really difficult.
It sounds like you've just fallen into it by going on that cruise. You didn't enjoy it, but you found meditation through that cruise, and you've fallen into it. But was there anything beforehand that you tried, or that, and you were like, no, that doesn't work for me? Or was it just that it just came out of chance?
I always felt there was a wee voice in my head saying, learn to meditate for years, and I just ignored it. Prior to that, I'm a really intense reader, and so I had bought lots and lots of books. And what I was trying to do was change my mindset. I watched a lot of Tony Robbins videos as well, and anything that I could get my hands on about changing your mindset. And the only way that I found that I was able to change my mindset, because my mind was like a train all the time, it just was like a double car crash in here all day long, was that the meditation allowed my thoughts to calm down, and it allowed me to be thinking one thing at a time, to speak more slowly, and to just be more in tune with things, and be able to experience things, because everything for me was happening so quickly in my head. So that was fundamental. But I think also a lot of the book reading I did as well helped me to prepare for that. None of them said learn to meditate. I don't remember them saying that anyway. Yeah. But my goal was to change my mindset. Yeah. And the only way that I could do that, to think differently, to stop reacting, to stop behaving like a child and la la la. And so meditation was was it? And all the other benefits that it brought too, which was to make me just more relaxed, a more easygoing human being, and not to get uptight about things, because I just don't get uptight about anything except work. Work can make me uptight, but outside of that, nothing.
Because what
really.
I found when we had that coffee last week, we spoke about like what we were like before we got help, and you were telling me you were a completely different person, and I just couldn't believe it, because I'm like, I don't. You can tell me that you were different, but I don't believe it. But you were a completely different person.
Absolutely. I would say that I was on the edge of being. Probably people at work maybe would say, "Aye, that'll be fucking right. You were totally a narcissistic." That's how I would have described myself for most of my life, utterly narcissistic. But the other thing that I found out recently was that one of the, and I've been on antidepressants for many, many years, and one of the side effects of antidepressants is a condition called emotional blunting, which I don't know if you've heard of that, have you? It's a fairly new thing.
Yeah.
It's certainly new for me. And that explains as well why what I said earlier about not feeling connected to people, because my emotions were literally blunted. So you literally had not a lot of warmth or compassion, or I had zero, any of that, none at all.
Yeah, I'm the exact same, and I think if you asked any relationship I was in or any friendship I've been in, they'll say the same. You know, they'll all be like, yeah, it was like talking to a brick wall. Sometimes it was just that emotionally. Like, I just
did that come from taking antidepressants as well, then, or did it come from something else?
I mean, I had a weird relationship with medication. I always taught myself. I mean, I didn't really want to help myself, I think, and I had told myself, I'm not taking a fucking pill to make myself feel better. Like, I'm not doing it. And I think people were like, no, you need to take it. It's one of those things that you've got a fucking chemical imbalance in your head. It'll make much more sense if you take it. And I was just like, no, why should I? And again, that was just me not wanting to help myself.
Can I ask what age you were at that time?
I mean, about 10 years ago, maybe. Because I hadn't been on antidepressants.
So in your 20s then?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I took them. And then it got to the point where we were having to call up the doctor to get another prescription. And I thought, fuck this, I'm not doing that. Like, just give me them all at once, and I'll save me coming back, and I'll take them daily. But it was the laziness of being like, I'm not going to the doctors to pick up my prescription. And
well, how different were you, Callum?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the opposite of who you are now, I would think, isn't
yeah.
it?
Aye, completely.
You don't sound like at all like that kind of person now.
And again, the last year, I just kind of had the doctor had came to me and been like, what medication have you been on? And I was like, right, I was only on this for a couple of months, and then I took myself off it. I took myself off medication. I'm not a fucking doctor. And I was just like, I'm not doing it because it's inconvenient to me.
Yeah.
And
I get that too.
that was part of my self-destruction, you know, not wanting to help myself. And I then was speaking to the doctor when I went into hospital last year. He was like, I'm going to trial you on a new medication. I was like, right, don't put me on sertraline, because that fucking numbed my whole body. Couldn't get a fucking hard on or nothing. And men don't talk about these things, right? But I don't care.
That is also a very common side effect from antidepressants as well.
But I felt numb completely in my body. It wasn't just that body part specifically. It was just the whole body. It just made me like a Terminator. You know what I mean? I had no emotions, and I was just like, I couldn't grasp anything. And
I felt like a machine.
Yeah.
And I used to call myself the machine when I was like that. Because that's what you feel like. You feel more machine-like than human.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any of these human attributes like kindness or empathy.
And I think that explains a lot for relationships, I would say. It's always where I've let myself down the most. And, you know, I did find it very hard to understand other people's feelings. I thought there was something wrong with me that I just couldn't grasp. Like, why the fuck are you upset about that? Like, it's pointless. Don't be upset about that, you know.
So you'd even say you're a bit dismissive
of
it. Because I would definitely put myself in that category as well. Not interested.
Yeah.
Fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
Fucking interested in you anyway.
It's like, so your grand's died. Everybody dies. You know, get over it. And it's just.
Well, that's a bit harsh.
I know.
Even for me.
I know that sounds. I was using that as an example, but like, you know, that's the kind of dissociation with life that you have. And
so did he put you on another medication?
Yeah, he put me on mirtazapine, and I'm still on that, and I take that religiously.
How does that feel?
It's been the best one because I don't have any side effects, apart from the one side effect is that it makes you hungry.
Oh, right.
So you want to binge eat, and you put on a bit of weight, which is...
Who cares? It's all about your mental health. That's something to deal with at a later point, and it's not, if you want to, that is not important.
Yeah, and binge eating is a massive thing for me. That is like a a vice almost. It's, you know, some people do heroin. I eat fucking bags of Haribos, you know, which is not the worst thing to be addicted to, but
it's not.
At the same time,
it's all temporary too. I mean, this isn't the way your life's going to be forever. It's just this temporary thing. So maybe just sort of welcome it as a temporary thing that's giving you a wee bit of warmth and a wee bit of comfort eating kind of thing. So, as I say, it's temporary. It's this period you're in just now. It belongs to this period you're in just now, but not for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
And how does the depression make you feel? Like for me, I associate it with a hand that hovers over my chest, and when I'm in bed, it's just like it's got all the weight in the world, but none of the weight. I know there's no weight. I know there's no hand, but it just pushes me down. Like, stay in bed and just stay there. Stay low. So I'll give into that, and I'll just be like, right, when I'm sick of giving in, I'm like, right, there's my fight. Right, I'm going to get out and go a walk or go to the gym or something like that. It's only so much I take before I'm like, but I tend to just hide away from the world, shut everybody away, push everybody away, and just hide under my covers and pretend like I don't exist. That's what my depression makes me feel like. What about you?
Well, I would used to say to people, I'm in my cave. Don't phone me for the next few days. And that's more or less what you were saying as well. Yeah. And I also have this other kind of story that I saw for me, which was that I became so depressed, even on antidepressants. I can't even remember what it was. It's not that long ago, a year or so ago, and I was sitting on my seat in my living room, was looking out the window, and I actually imagined that a huge, big, black bird, so like a crow, but absolutely enormous, grabbed me from here, right, and took me away over there to another planet. And the words that came from is, sometimes you look as if you're on another planet because you're so spaced out or you're so focused on something else. And so we went to this other planet, and everybody else was on the planet was depressed as well. And they all had their own bird, and the bird watched them all the time and wouldn't let them do anything. So that was like a bird that paralysed you from taking part in life, plus the fact you were on another planet. You weren't even on the planet that you were supposed to be on. And you could see other people, but they were all just kind of sitting like this, all just hunched up. They'd given up. They had given up. And I remember feeling so so not at the end, but just so depressed. And a friend of mine turned up, and I wasn't expecting her. And she came to the door, and when I saw her, I burst out crying. She says, "What's the matter, Christine?" I said, "Oh, I've just had this horrible kind of out of body sort of experience thing." And I always say, if you hadn't come to the door, I'm not making it dramatic. Say, who knows what would have happened? I probably would have got back from that planet. But her love and her warmth and her care for me was strong enough to take me out of that planet and bring me back here. So that's my kind of not visualization, but that's how I regard it. Yeah. That you're not actually living, you're existing, and people would say, "God, you look as if you're not even on this planet."
Yep.
You're not, because you're way over here in another planet. But that's quite frightening for you to be up there in a big bird, watching every movement that you're making and thinking, "How am I going to get back?" Yeah,
and you're just a vessel, aren't you? I think the word depression and all that gets thrown about a bit too easily. Like, if you've had a tough time for 2 weeks, that's classed as depression. It's not. Depression's what you live with every day, and that fight every day. And that's why I was checked out, and I was like, I'm sick of fighting, man. Why should I fucking take this? No, you wouldn't punish anybody like this.
It is a very hard thing to deal with, and unless you've been through it yourself, you unfortunately can give graphic details of what depression really is like. You wouldn't wish it on anybody, even on someone you don't like. You wouldn't wish it on them. It's hard. But for most of the time, my medication works for me even after all this time. And I do think we have to do things to help ourselves, Callum. So what I'm doing every day is I'm out forest bathing. I know it's not cutting about in your swimming costume in the forest. It's what the Japanese people do. So it's just about having a walk in the park where there are trees, and it's been proven that when you walk in nature, there's huge mental and physical benefits. As well as that, I am trying to journal every day if I can, but particularly if I'm upset about something and I don't always see people or talk to people. So for me, it's important to write it down, get it out of my head. And as well as that, I am doing meditation at least every day. And I think what is really important is what you put in your mouth. So your food that you eat is very important as well. So I have a raw diet, and I eat the soup all the time that I just made for the boys, the ham hock. I've got to laugh at myself. I put all these organic vegetables in it and then fling a ham hock in it, which is like a big pig getting flung into all these. But somehow the flavours all seem to sort of fuse with each other. And that's my kind of staple. But I still eat cakes, and I still have all stuff, but not that much. I think that... So these are the wee ritual things that I do that help me, because we can't just stand back and say, oh, I can't get a hold of a therapist, they're too expensive and this and that. I do think there are things that as human beings we have to do to help ourselves that genuinely makes us feel better. And the things that don't cost any money, just get your coat on, get your shoes on, and out you go. And I guarantee you will definitely feel better.
Yeah, and it's amazing being in hospital and being in there for a certain amount of time, and all it was rest, medication and 3 meals a day. And I was feeling so much better. It's very, very simple in terms of what you need to follow in terms of structure. It's definitely a pyramid. It's like one thing leads to the next, and it's like your food, right? Make sure your food's on point. Right? Are you getting out enough? Right? Are you speaking about things enough? Are you journaling? What are you doing? You definitely need to do a combination of loads of things to keep on top of it. And
as you said earlier, it's not a one size fits all. You've already talked about yourself and how you experiment with different things, and that's definitely the way to do it, because people will find and need different things. We don't all need the same things. So you have to just find out what's. But why wouldn't we want to make the best of our lives and feel well and feel up? No, I don't think this is just for people with depression or people with mental health issues. I think this is for everybody.
Yeah, and I've seen how far I've come in a year, and I've still got ways to go. It's still an ongoing project, and it will be until the day I die. But seeing how far I've come and how much I've changed, because I know my thinking style. I know I'm not thinking the same way as I was 2 years ago.
What do you put that down to then, because that's a big thing.
Yeah.
If you've managed to change your thinking, don't underestimate how huge that is. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, I guess it's just the CBT therapy really helped me in a way. It was kind of just processing things better and rationally thinking about things. So if you were experiencing something, you would rationally think of it rather than just the first thing that you wanted to do to self-destruct and not deal with it.
That's a huge shift, though.
Yeah.
That's a huge shift. I'm so glad that worked out for you.
Yeah, and again, the therapy of just one-to-one worked for me, because it got me, after it brought everything to the surface.
Yes.
The CBT then was like, right, I'm going to teach you the tools to make sure you don't do that again.
Did that happen when you were in the hospital or when you came out?
Came out.
So it's like an outpatient type thing?
Yeah. So the hospital served its purpose because I got checked in. I was the healthiest person there by a long stretch. And I was looking at a guy sitting having a conversation with himself. And I thought, that sounds like somebody's replying to him. That's a real conversation that's going on there. That's your future. And it was like day 5. And I thought, right, this makes sense now. Everything's into perspective. Got checked out. Went back to therapy, doing one-to-one. I was like, right, I spoke to you 2 years ago and I wasn't completely honest because I wasn't ready to help myself. Now I am. So here's everything that I want to talk about. And we got everything out and that brought it to the surface. And then CBT was like, right, how do we break that down, rationalise it, change your way of thinking? Because my thinking's negative automatic thoughts.
Yep.
The first thing that comes into my mind is a negative thought.
I'm the same.
How do you shift that? And the tools to do that, as well as going to the gym and running or taking the dog a walk. I mean, since I moved back in with my mum and dad, taking the dog out has been a massive help for me. Like just getting out there.
You meet other dog people as well, and they want to talk to you and ask you about your dog, and it's all that too. And my
energy's completely changed, because I used to be a guy that would walk with his head down and not speak to anybody, and if anybody spoke to me, I'd be like, I'm not getting involved. Now I'm like, hi, how you doing? Morning, how you doing? And I feel like
that's nice.
I feel like I'm such a prick, but
no! Listen, I'll tell you what a prick is if you really want to get into the prick conversation. No, I think that's just lovely. This is just the new you. This is just. And you must be so happy when you see yourself changing like that.
I mean, I'm always a realist. I know there's ways to go, but I am happy with how much I've progressed, because,
as you say, in such a short space of time as well, Cameron, really.
Aye, and I mean, I struggle daily. There's times where I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do this today. But you know, all you need to do. Somebody once told me, all you need to do is get out of bed and make your bed, and that's your first objective done. If you can do that, you can do anything, and that's powerful.
Yeah. I always say as well that sometimes for me, my bed is like my head of horrors, because it creates all sorts of negative feelings. In fact, was it yesterday morning? I woke up and I thought, I bet nobody's downloaded that. I bet nobody's even. I've made a mistake. Maybe just to fucking up yourself, Christine. Maybe. So it's all that stuff going on, and as soon as I got out of my bed, I was thinking completely differently. Yeah. So there's something about leave your negativity in your bed.
Yeah.
But there's something I wanted to say to you about when you first went into hospital. You told me how you just slept and slept and slept and slept.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I wanted to say, that having a good quality sleep is a really important thing too. I mean, isn't that interesting? That was all you did was sleep. I remember you saying to me that was all I did really was sleep.
Yeah,
so that shows how uptight you were and how much you needed to relax, and you probably must have felt safe in that environment to just allow your body just to sleep.
Yeah, and it wasn't really the most comfortable environment to be, but I slept like nothing else, and that was mental exhaustion. I know physical exhaustion and mental are totally different, and mental exhaustion is why I'm still here, because, you know, I walked 45 minutes home from quitting a job, and it was just like, I'm going up the road to end my life. And I walked 45 minutes, I came home and I was that mentally exhausted, I slept for a week. And I gave in, and I was like, right, I'm shutting myself in now. And from there, a little voice in my head was just like, go and get help, go and do it. And here I am.
It's not your time.
No.
You're meant for something else.
Yeah.
You're absolutely meant for something else.
That's amazing to get to that point.
It is. But you have to put the effort in as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, and people probably don't see that at all. But you need to put the effort in yourself, and some days can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
I've got some really nice books that maybe you would quite like to read. Are you a reader?
I'm not. No.
Okay.
I would love to be, but I don't know if it's my dyslexia. I just get bored.
Yeah, I know. I buy books for my friends every Christmas, and I always say to them, I try to buy them a book that I think is what they need at that time, or it's relevant to what they're feeling or doing or whatever at that time. And I always say, and they're all millennials, so I say, please just try and read one page.
Yeah.
If you can read one page, I'll be so happy, because I know you weren't brought up with books.
Yeah.
You were brought up with the millennial digital age, where we didn't get books. Books are my thing, because that's where we got our information before the internet.
Yeah.
So and I try to encourage them to read, because it's a great thing, and it's a great thing to help you sleep at night as well.
Yeah, and funnily enough, like I don't read books, but I listen to audiobooks now.
Oh, great.
And that's what's kind of got me into the podcasting, because I listened to Matthew McConaughey's book called Green Lights.
Right, I've heard some of his Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, and it's just his outlook in life, and how he chases himself, and how he's his own hero, and just the shit that he's dealt with, and he's just always seems to have quite a good perspective on life. And I know he's a big Hollywood actor, and you're supposed to be
but
like,
he's still a man, he's a person.
Yeah,
he's still a person too, isn't it?
And that book really helped me. I needed to listen to that at that time.
Great. Yeah, it was great.
So yeah, audiobooks are definitely something that I enjoy. I think it's maybe just listening, I take it in, whereas if I'm reading it, I forget the last chapter, and I'm like, right, I need to go back
fair
and
enough.
read that.
Yeah, I know that some people are like that. You have to find whatever it is that suits you, but as long as you can, find mind nourishment through whatever way it is for you.
Yeah, and with you getting to 67, what was the age where you started meditating?
Maybe 62, 61, 62. So it's been quite a long time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say that the sort of the crux of it all, or when it all started to make sense, was probably just 2 to 3 years ago. So this is all quite new for me.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm doing this. It just seems the right thing to do. So.
And is there any part of you that you think, I wish I knew this sooner?
All of me.
Right.
All of my life would have been so different.
Yeah.
But then I could never have meditated then. My head was like a car crash. There was just no way that I could have. So it's the old thing, isn't it? When the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. So things happen in your life when you're ready and you're able to absorb them and enjoy them and be beneficial to you. Because if that had happened to me when I was younger, there's just no way,
Yeah.
But I do honestly think that if certain things hadn't happened to me when I was younger, or certain situations hadn't happened, I would have led a different life. And the life that I led was because of some of the things that happened, and some of the things that I heard and whatever. So,
Yeah.
So I always just say I'm back to reclaim the life I should have had. It's never too late for me. I will not regard age as a thing that we need to be concerned about. As long as I'm healthy, I will continue to try to reclaim the life that I should have had. And that makes you start to think, well, what would you have been good at? You have fucking no idea. Because you just fucking stayed in a job and I was a single parent and I had to work night and day and and that was my choice. But what would I have liked to have done? I've got no idea.
Yeah.
I was never in a position to choose. You know, I told you that I wanted to be an actress. My mother said, in the name of Jesus, Mary and Joseph and the wee donkey, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no way you'd be wanting in a fucking office like everybody else. So that was that. That was the bottom of the slates there, wasn't it? Nobody was listening to that. So I don't really know. I don't know if I'm meant to do this. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's about discovering, and that's why I did the extra work and stuff, and I just loved it. But that's not the kind of thing that you can work at full time. You know, it's a kind of an ad hoc thing. But it's certainly something I'd like to continue with because I like it in my life. It's exciting and nice. Nice people. Meeting nice people.
And if you could give yourself, the younger self, like say my age, some advice that you've learned through all of this, what would you give her? What advice would you give her?
Probably just to not to overreact and to just have a more calm outlook, I suppose. Be more rational. If I'm looking at all the things that fucked me up, these are the things I didn't do. I wasn't rational. I didn't take things a step at a time. I breached into everything, and everything I breached into was wrong. So probably had I been more calm in my outlook, and if I'd been more calm in my outlook, I don't think I would have landed up in a job that I hated for 40 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were funny times. I'm not saying that my life is utterly sad. There were lots of funny moments, but there weren't really any happy. You know, a therapist said to me, "So think about a time when you were happy." Well, I says, "You'll be waiting a while." Can't think of any. I can't think any time I was
said
happy.
the exact same.
Did you? So, but that's quite shocking when you say that, isn't it? It's particularly for me, living all these years and you've not got one. You've got maybe a happy situation of being at a wedding or a happy, you know, or something like that, but not an actual. But happiness comes from here. Yeah. And I remember discovering happiness in 2021. I was driving my car in the M8. And suddenly, I thought, I feel happy. And nothing had happened. Nothing outside of me. There was no particular situation. I thought, for fuck's sake, that is unbelievable. This is what people must feel all the time. Yeah. And here I am in the M8 feeling happy. So that was incredible for me. That was a real happy time because I'd never felt that emotion of happiness that came from inside me.
I'm so happy for you for having that.
For having that happy moment.
Yeah. But I think I'm only comparing this to myself, but I don't notice the happy times. I don't tend to focus on them. And I think like just sitting on the couch having a bowl of pasta with your ex-partner or something like that or whatever, just a moment that doesn't mean anything to the world, but to you, that moment's happiness. And you know, you get it everywhere. You get it listening to a song, or you get it on the bus talking to a complete stranger.
Sometimes as well, I feel really happy if I'm going to meet someone that I really like, and I'm always quite childlike. When I was coming to meet you, and I was like, I hope this will be great, and I felt quite excited the way you would if you're going to meet somebody, or even a friend that you really know. You don't see them that much, and that's a real happy thing for me, and having that time with them, because maybe you don't see them that much, and you have these precious times of having a good laugh and a good gab, and so small things like that.
And it's funny because that explains our situation, because we met in a waiting room, and there's something about each other where we're just like couldn't stop talking, and you know, we've only known each other for 2 weeks, if that, and I feel like we've just got such a great bond, and I hope people can come across that on listening.
I hope so, and I think that the thing that we do both have is a real sense of openness and transparency. And I think that is quite endearing to people. You don't find that with a lot of people. A lot of people will say, well, I'll tell you this, but I'm definitely not telling you that. And we don't have a menu for that. We're just like, open the box and here is everything here that you want to see or talk about. Nothing is off limits. It's all fine. And I don't think you meet people like that. So I think that's an endearing. It draws people into you.
Yeah, it's like in a weird way, and it sounds, I'm almost cringing about thinking it, but like we were meant to meet.
Yes.
We were meant to come into each other's lives.
Well, I do believe that's truth. There's always say that people come into your life for a reason. And I was watching this thing the other day, and this guy was saying, but remember that people may not always be with you for your whole life. There are certain people that are supposed to be with you going through a certain time, and they may sort of disappear, or I don't know, go away abroad and you lose touch or whatever. And I thought that makes complete sense to me, because I think we sometimes can feel a sadness if a friendship starts to fade, or the person maybe meets new friends, or they move to another country, or they get a new job and you can't see them as much. Yeah. So I believe in that completely.
Yeah, and the both of us have that keenness to help others in a position that we want, and we're probably going to talk about that more and work on something to bring out, as in like a kind of forum or whatever it be, like a safe space for people.
Space, yes.
So keep an eye out for that. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on early and with short notice.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. I've never been on a podcast before, so it's a real big thing for me. So thank you, Callum, for asking.
And where can the people find you if they want to follow you or even talk to you? You know, where can people find you online, and where can people find the podcast?
They can find me on Instagram. They really must. No, they can find me on Instagram, and the podcast is on Spotify, and it is Unmuzzled at 67 Confessions of a Glasgow Pensioner.
Fantastic.
Nice, isn't it?
And it's currently in episode 1, so please, I implore everybody that's listened to this, please go and listen to it.
Thank you.
And flood the page and follow the page, because Christine's got a lot of interesting things to say, and I can't wait for you all to hear it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Callum.
And we'll see you next Tuesday.